Hi, this is Linda Vidi from Linda Vidi's Life Coaching and Counseling, and we're going to talk today about the fear of conflict. Now, a lot of folks that have trauma issues have a fear of conflict. For obvious reasons. I mean, think about it. If you've had traumatic experiences, they by nature are conflict. And so to avoid all conflict is absolutely natural for a trauma survivor. They don't want to feel the feelings. They don't want to feel the fear. They don't want to be hypervigilant. They don't want the fear of rejection, the fear of being misunderstood. All kinds of fears go into the fear of conflict. It's not just the fear of conflict. We need to think through all of those different things because for each person it may be different. But bottom line is you have to understand that conflict leads to intimacy. Yes, you heard that correctly. Now, I know a lot of people might be thinking, okay, if someone stops me on the street and starts confronting me and arguing with me, how is that going to lead to intimacy? Because I have no interest in being intimate with that person. Well, I can say this. If you actually can resolve that conflict in a way that is beneficial to both the other person and yourself, will you not know that person better? Even if you never wanted to get to know them in the first place, even if you never wanted to meet them in the first place, could you absolutely say you know that person better than you did before that conflict? Of course, because we went through something with them. Even if it's not something we wanted to go through with them, we still will be closer to that person. But when we think about what I'm talking about, we think about, spousal relationships, friendships, business, things like that, children. So every time you approach a problem, every time you confront a problem, and you're able to work through it in a healthy way, you will be closer to the person that you work the problem through with. Just like if you're in a traumatic situation with other people, even complete strangers, you can be bonded to those people just because of the shared experience. So conflict absolutely leads to intimacy, and it is really, really important that we don't shy away from it because we're avoiding issues, we're avoiding problems, we're avoiding things that could be resolved and bring us closer or bring us into a better situation with another person. So why? Why do we fear it so much? I mean, besides the obvious, it's uncomfortable. I mean, let's get real. Conflict is uncomfortable. There are some people that, granted, like to argue. Narcissistic people, for one, love to argue. There are other types of people that, with personality types, that don't have a fear of conflict, and they want to get right in there and solve the issues. And those are people that do business, do well in certain areas, but for the majority of us, we have a fear of conflict. So it's uncomfortable. It can lead to bringing up issues that may not want to be talked about. They can bring up feelings of, besides uncomfortableness, they can bring up a freezing sensation. There are some people who've suffered trauma who, when they get into conflict, they will actually freeze. And so just the fact of freezing will actually make them shy away from conflict because they don't want to be put in a situation where they're going to be like to other people. And so rather than do that, they will avoid the conflict. Another thing that people do is get triggered when they're in conflict. And when you get triggered, you can have kind of, we call it trauma brain, where your brain gets foggy. You can start stammering your words. You can start sweating. You can start losing your train of thought. And all of those things can be very embarrassing or shameful to some people. So we want to avoid them at all costs. Another reason trauma people have a fear of conflict is we are sometimes afraid that we are going to go overboard into fight mode. In other words, if we're getting in a conflict and the other person says the wrong thing or triggers us in some way, we may actually go overboard, like over-exaggerated with resolving the conflict in a fight type of way. And that's not beneficial. That's not going to help. So none of these things that we do from trauma are going to help a conflict situation. And obviously flight is what we're doing when we have the fear. We avoid it at all costs. And if we think we're going to get into it, we excuse ourselves, or we make an excuse, or we get the heck out of there. So what is a healthy way to deal with this? Well, the first thing you got to do is acknowledge the fear and acknowledge where it comes from and why. So once you've acknowledged it and you're aware of it, then you can do it afraid. You have to practice at this for a while before you really get over and through the fear with being able to walk into a situation that will have conflict and not be afraid. You're just going to be afraid for a while. Get used to it, deal with it, do it afraid. So you're going to walk in there with fear and all. You're going to do calming techniques though. If you walk into something you know you're afraid, you can do calming techniques. You can do muscle relaxation. You can do deep breathing. You can do some imagery. You can actually picture it going well and picture how you want it to go and do some positive imagery. There are things you can do to prepare, but even if you're afraid, go in afraid, but be relaxed so you're not reacting out of triggers. You don't want to react out of the triggers. And then, after the conflict, you can check in with the other person. How was it for you? I'm glad we were able to try and resolve this. If there's anything you're still feeling uncomfortable or, upset about, I want you to be able to reach out to me. So we can do some things at the end to really leave the lines of communication open with this other person. And when you do that, when you start doing this on a regular basis and you start doing conflict and you realize the benefit of working through a conflict and getting closer to another person and working through a problem that may be plaguing you if you don't deal with the conflict. And those are all really, really good reasons to face this fear, guys. Walk through it afraid. Do your techniques to calm yourself down so you're not triggered during it. And then afterwards, really touch base with the other person and leave the lines of communication open. You will be closer to people. You will resolve problems better. You will feel better about who you are and what you can do. It will build your confidence. It truly, really will. So if you have problems with conflict or anything else, please reach out to me, Linda Vidi, at Linda Vidi's Life Coaching and Counseling. Find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Leave comments below, and we'll see you next time. Okay? God bless.